They are opposites in so many ways, and yet they're also the same. Hi, my name is Jo Rochelle, and today we will be talking about a truly iconic couple with an epic journey. Yeah, we're talking about Hades and Persephone in the webtoon Lore Olympus by Rachel Smythe. Before I share the 5 moments in Lore Olympus that prove Hades and Persephone belong together, here is a little background first. Last year at the Los Angeles Comic-Con, I had the honor of moderating a Lore Olympus panel with Rachel.
A lot of us are huge Lore Olympus fans, so without further ado, I think we should bring in the creator of Lore Olympus, Rachel Smythe!
And after that panel, I interviewed her for my podcast. Here's a moment from that interview that really stands out and gives us some special insight into the 2 main characters of Lore Olympus. People like Hades a lot.
They do.
What makes him so attractive, you think?
I think it is this weird combination of him being really worldly, but also a strange sense of innocence. There's a naivete to Hades he probably shouldn't have. He can do lots of other mature things, but he's kind of missed the boat on building relationships, and he's a little bit left behind, and part of you's I want to help him. So I think that's the appeal, is he's almost there. He kind of doesn't understand when he's being appreciated or someone's actually trying to be nice to him, and I think that's why he kind of touches people. The parallel between these 2 characters is they're both kind of left behind by their peers, and that's why they can get along so well. We'll touch on it a bit more, and we've seen it a little bit in the chapters. He is so much more injured than all of his other peers. He's a little left behind. He's a little undeveloped mentally. Again, Persephone, she's a little left behind. She is behind everyone else, and that's sort of how they resonate with each other.
Yeah, one is 19 and one is 2000 something.
Yeah, but they can meet up on this, those small elements.
Being left behind.
Yeah, being left behind.
I think we've all felt left behind by our peers at some point. Maybe everyone's getting married and having babies while you're still living that single life. Or maybe you're the last person in your friend group to get a cell phone. Or maybe you find yourself completely swamped on your first day of work and you have no idea what to do. Culture dictates that we should reach certain milestones by certain ages. And if you don't, imposter syndrome can settle in. And it can be lonely. Rachel has peppered in several examples of Hades and Persephone feeling left behind. So keeping all of that in mind, here are 5 moments that I believe prove they belong together. Moment number 1, the phone call, in episodes 26 to 28. Persephone had a terrible night, and she doesn't want to be alone. On the phone, Hades promises not to go. He also calls her melancholic. He says, "When I first saw you at the party, you looked sad. When I carried you into the house, you felt sad. And you sound sad right now." He's not only dropping hard truths and really seeing into Persephone's heart, he's also letting her know that he cares, and it's okay to be sad. And then there's Persephone. She asks, "How come you're not married? Zeus and Poseidon got married a long time ago." Hades responds with, "I got really busy and just kinda didn't want to try anymore." This phone call broke down barriers for our couple. It was so honest, and it deeply revealed their fears of falling behind their peers. The way Hades encouraged Persephone at one of her lowest moments, and the way Persephone asked tough personal questions about his life, proved that their attraction to each other goes far past the physical. Moment number 2, the Sicilian connection, in episode 80. Hades is blue and tall. Persephone is pink and not very tall. Hades is in his 2000s. Persephone is 19 going on 20. One is king of the underworld, the other goddess of spring. I could go on and on. If we're being completely honest, on paper, they don't have a lot in common. So when there's a moment in the webtoon that does show their similarities, we have to take notice of it. Standing in Zeus and Hera's garden, Persephone calls herself a stupid village girl for grabbing Hades' hand when she got tired. And it irked him, not because she touched his hand, I think he liked that very much, but because he didn't like hearing her talk that way. He didn't want her to be ashamed of where she came from, especially because that's where he came from. So let's talk about the phrase stupid village girl. It's been said to her, and she's said it about herself. In this special moment, Hades reframes the shame that Persephone has come to associate with being from a small village and from living a sheltered life. She gives him a flower, Pomelia, and they whisper secretly, warmly in the dark, just like me, the same as me. Just like you, the same as you. Honestly, it's more than just a Sicilian connection. It's fate. Moment number 3, second puberty, in episode 90. What would you say is one of Hades' deepest insecurities? Being compared to his father Kronos. In the hallway at work, as Minth is unhinged and yelling at him in episode 76, she says something that has no purpose other than to hurt him. You have his eyes, his hands, his skin. Who would want to be with someone who resembles the greatest tyrant we've ever known? As she speaks, we see his eyes, his hands, his skin in his other form. This is his insecurity. This is his wound, and Minth isn't afraid to pick at it. However, in episode 90, as Persephone watches Hades put the eye back, she has a totally different response to Hades' other form. What Minth thought was disgusting, Persephone finds alluring. She blushes hot pink. Hades looking like that might be the hottest thing she's ever seen. She makes everything bloom everywhere. Persephone's second puberty, as she calls it, her extreme, uncontrollable attraction to a form Hades asked her to wait in the hallway to avoid seeing, proves that they're meant to be. Moment number 4, boundaries, in episode 90. Persephone and Hades agree to slow down. No texting between the hours of 9 p.m. to 9 a.m., no touching, and they shouldn't be alone together. In the comments section on episode 88, Kelly Elizabeth McDermott commented on the webtoon saying, "Why do I feel like slowing it down is just going to catapult this relationship full speed ahead?" I think this sums up how we all felt. The boundaries conversation relies heavily on honesty and trust, which ironically are 2 blocks in the foundation of a healthy relationship. Something that stood out to me was when Persephone said, "We've almost kissed like 3 times now." They've only known each other for a short amount of time, and yet she's already comfortable enough to admit this in front of her crush. She knows she can say it out loud, and it will be okay. He won't deny it, he won't make fun of her, because he understands her. Persephone shared her feelings, even her most embarrassing feelings, with Hades. And this needed to happen. If this didn't happen, I don't think Hades would have summed up the courage and come to the realization that he needed to break things off with Minth. Because of Persephone's vulnerability, now there's no question whether there's a romantic connection between the two of them. It's out in the open. And though they agreed to slow down, I also believe this conversation actually sped them up on the road to becoming a couple. Moment number 5. I want to feel safe and loved all the time, in episode 102. Hades looks at the letter he'd written to Persephone as a therapy assignment, but he had never given it to her. He wrote it to explain why he chose Minth, because it was a deliberate choice. He chose Minth and tried to distance himself from Persephone afterwards. Emphasis on the tried. So he takes a red pen to that original letter, and he crosses out a paragraph. Here's what he crossed out. I don't think you can be in love with someone you don't know. I'm just infatuated with you. You have indulged my numerous advances with the kindness and grace of no other. This is terrifying because your attention makes me feel so good, and the concept of not being able to feel that way again is devastating. And here's what he wrote instead. I love the way you treat me, and I want to feel that way all the time. Can we marvel at the growth that was brilliantly shown when he crossed out the old and wrote in the new revelations? He loves the way Persephone treats him. He recognizes and he appreciates it. So yes, they've been left behind by their peers, but they've also been able to console and deeply understand each other because of that fact. Together, Hades and Persephone are coming to understand that life doesn't necessarily have a correct order. They're learning to be kinder to themselves, to value themselves, and that's why I believe they belong together. That's it, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you read webtoons all the time and you find yourself still craving more content, then you'll enjoy the Girl Wonder podcast, where we discuss webtoons every Tuesday. If you enjoyed this episode, consider joining my Patreon at patreon.com/girlwonder. You can find the link in the description box. My patrons' voices and opinions are frequently featured in podcast episodes. Join us. We would love to have you.